As the 2022 legislative session came to an end and Governor Charlie Baker signed several pieces of legislation into law last week, State Senator Becca Rausch joined Municipal Producer Yuxiao Yuan to talk about what was accomplished this year and what people can anticipate for the next round. This video was part of the program Legislative Review with State Senator Becca Rausch and highlights the climate bill, the reproductive rights bill, and the tabled economic development bill.
Governor Baker recently signed into law a climate and clean energy bill that intends to bring the state closer to its goal of net zero greenhouse gas emissions by 2050.
That was a huge bill, landmark legislation, setting, frankly, a national standard on offshore wind and greener, better buildings and ratepayer protections, and really significantly shifting our transit systems from fossil fuels into electric.
The act allows 10 municipalities to legally ban fossil fuel infrastructure in new constructions. It increases the rebate for purchasing zero-emission vehicles to $3,500. Offers an additional $1,000 to buyers trading in a gas-powered vehicle, and mandates all new vehicle sales be zero-emission starting 2035. Senator Becca Rausch said she was pleased to see the final bill adopt two of her amendments.
I put a piece into that bill on school buses, right? Everybody, you've seen the school bus, you see the plume of, gross smoke that comes out of the tailpipe. That's because school buses rely on diesel fuel.
The other amendment provides provisions that will help reduce carbon emissions of existing buildings.
Specifically focusing on mandating reporting of energy use and emissions from those existing large buildings, because we just can't mitigate what we don't measure. So with these provisions, we'll have the measurements, and then we can figure out how to best mitigate them and set standards for energy, carbon emission reductions and energy efficiencies for those existing large buildings.
In the wake of Supreme Court overturning Roe v. Wade, state lawmakers passed provisions that provide shields for abortion care providers and patients from out-of-state lawsuits. It also expands parameters in the Roe Act, passed in 2020, which outlines acceptable circumstances for abortions after 24 weeks. The updated language allows abortion in the case of a grave fetal diagnosis that indicates the fetus is incompatible with sustained life outside of the uterus without extraordinary medical interventions.
Earlier in the session, we passed robust reproductive and gender-affirming care legislation. That bill was really critical, including making reproductive rights an actual personal right, and providing people a pathway to enforce those rights if anybody violates them or interferes with them. Also addressing abortion and birth care deserts in our Commonwealth, and protecting the rights and the laws and the access that we already have here in the Commonwealth, which we passed last term by virtue of the Roe Act, in the space of really making sure that nobody already in the Bay State or coming to the Bay State to access reproductive health care need worry about being able to actually get physical or mental health care related to pregnancy.
However, a major $4 billion economic development bill that includes tax relief and one-time tax rebates, as well as investments in affordable housing, childcare, and healthcare, is on hold because of a 1986 tax rebate law. The law automatically triggers tax rebates when a certain amount of excess revenue is reached. In this case, it could trigger an almost $3 billion rebate to Massachusetts taxpayers. The legislature tabled the economic development bill because there was no time to address the impact of the 1986 law on the state's fiscal year 2022 tax revenue before the August 1st deadline.
It's a massive bill. The fact that it didn't get done before we closed formal session on August 1st was deeply disappointing and very frustrating, I think, for everybody. The absence of a negotiated deal, a compromise between the two chambers, is so deeply disappointing and frustrating. That money, is not only direct money, but also more bond authorizations. I hope that we come back into formal session at some point in the next couple of months to finish that bill and take a vote on it. All those bond authorizations we actually have to take a vote on. because we need a 2/3 vote in order to authorize bonding. And we can only do that if we're voting on the record. We can't vote on the record in an informal session. So we will have to come back in for a special session in order to vote on those pieces. The rest of it could, in theory, go through in an informal session, but any one legislator can come and hold it up because those are the rules. That's how that particular portion of our legislating works.
More information on the 2022 Massachusetts legislative session is included in our program Legislative Review with State Senator Becca Rausch, which will be available soon on needhamchannel.org and the Needham Channel YouTube page.